Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I've hit record. So without further ado, Mary Teresa, please share your experience with us.
So I am someone, my name is Mary Teresa Tringali, and I go by Mary or MT. And I just recently booked a TEDx talk. So I actually am not, my TEDx is happening in February. But the best advice I can give you, because I was actually looking for information before my audition because I didn't get a lot of information from the organizers. So first of all, to the application, I was working with a friend who is one of the TEDx coach, and she said to me, remember that TED is about ideas worth spreading. So the concept of my talk, I really do believe, is what got me the audition in the first place. And I've been a trained speaker for a really long time. I have trained other speakers for a really long time. So I had a feeling that once I got the audition, I was going to do really well actually on stage. So the title of my talk is "The Wisdom of Our Ancestors Should Be Ignored." And that topic makes you go, what? Is that what you mean? What do you mean by that? So my biggest piece of advice is to come up with a topic that makes people read it again, get curious, and just at the very least want to hear from you on the stage of what the topic actually means. And it's all about the stories that we carry that belong to our ancestors that maybe aren't relevant or ours to carry now. And then for the actual audition, the way I created my speech was that I had a lot of thoughts on Post-its. And then as I was practicing, I was reading the Post-its as if they were bullet points, and I could move the Post-its around. When I was only supposed to be 10 minutes. I was at 18 the first time I went through it. So I had to take some of those Post-its down. I still have them on my wall so that when I actually created the speech, which I have 15 minutes for, I was able to refer back to those things. And I think that any pieces of advice I could give for the audition, you are on stage as if you are giving the speech, which I think that's the thing I wasn't clear on, is that you want to behave like the actual speech. You want me to be unmuted, right? There's somebody who needs to mute. So my biggest piece of advice is that you want to treat it like you're actually giving the speech. There's somebody who introduced me and that was it. I walked out and you just go. So I did have my notes. I could have notes. So I had all of my bullet points out on a piece of paper. There were a few times that I referred to it, but mostly I was able to give the speech as if I was giving the speech on that day, knowing that it would be longer on the actual day of. And one thing is that they wanted references for, or they want to know where I got my facts from. I can't think of the exact word. So they asked me that day, do you have your the proof of these facts, citations? Yeah, thank you. So do you have the proof? Do you have that information? Can you send it to us? And they wanted it right away, that those facts were actually true. So that was something I had to scramble for, because I had facts in there that I had gotten from an NLP certification course, and that my trainer didn't have the citation for that. So my recommendation would be you have your citations before it. Everything's good now, figured it all out. But yeah, I haven't been through the actual process, the actual event yet, but those pieces I think got me the actual event. And I think it's so, those two core things is have an idea worth spreading, that they're like, what does that mean? It's something really interesting that's almost controversial. I probably have told people who have asked what the topic is going to be, half of them are like, don't you mean shouldn't be ignored? And so it's like, nope, this is what it's about. And so that I highly recommend that you do something that people are like, oh, I want to know more about that. And then act like the audition is your actual speech, but knowing that you're going to get really great training after.
Oh my gosh, so great already. Lots of little tidbits. You said you're doing this in February?
Yep.
Yeah.
I live in Maine, so it's called York Beach TEDx. Very excited.
Super exciting. You'll have to be sure to come on and share what the experience actually of giving the actual talk was like for you. I think this is really helpful already. I never would have thought about having my citations ready to roll right off the top. So thank you very much, Mary Teresa. I'm sure we'll come back with some more questions for you in a little bit. But right now, I am going to move on to our next speaker, which is Mariama. So Mariama, go ahead and, am I saying your name right?
Mariama.
Mariama. I'm from the
Okay.
Midwest, so it's Mariama.
Mariama. You could Mari for short, or Mars. I have plenty of nicknames, believe me. My name is Mariama White. Wonderful to see you all, to be connected on this this conversation. So I just actually delivered my first TEDx talk a week and a half ago. It was December 6th, I think. No, December 3rd. I'm getting my dates mixed up. December 3rd, and it was in Colorado Springs. The actual event was TEDx Manitou Springs, which is not very far from Colorado Springs, but they had the event there. And it was wonderful. All the work that is really, like with my speaker coach and the writing, there were so many different, variations of my speech from the time that I landed to the time that I actually delivered it. It was quite a journey to be able to tell my story as well as add the citations and the research. My title, which, I probably will have to change because I know with TEDx, like once you put it on the big TED or on TEDx YouTube, it has to be within, I think, 100 characters. So my actual title is probably too long because I believe you have to, like with your name, with the title, and with the actual event, I believe that has to all be 100 characters. So my title was Finding Home, Creating the Inner Safety to Speak with Confidence and Authenticity. So I'm going to condense that somehow. But that was my title for the actual event, and they were saying that I probably have to change it a little bit. But I love what Mary Teresa was saying too, about adding some more intrigue and kind of mystery in there, but make sure you have some keywords, of course, but adding that mystery in there to make go, oh, what's she about to talk about in here? So I am actually from a performer's background. I've been performing most of my life, and I have moved into the speaking space for the past couple of years, but I was really excited about doing this TEDx event because I was like, if there's anything that I can kind of like start off with, start off with a TEDx event and see where it takes me after that. So I've been on a lot of different stages. I speak and I teach in a lot of different capacities here in my hometown of Cleveland, but I love the idea of merging my creativity with speaking. So there was a little song in there that I put in there as well, just a quick snippet. I didn't do too much, but something that really encompassed all of who I am, my artistry as well as my voice as a speaker. In terms of my actual journey to get the talk, I applied for a lot of talk. Well, let me see. A lot is relative. I applied to between like 12 and 15, and then life was happening in a whole different way. So I just kind of had to take a break from it. And then this is for people who may think that the only way to get it is through an application. I think that's probably the most common way, but you never know. I actually connected with someone on LinkedIn who was a speaker coach for this particular event with TEDx Manitou Springs, and he put on I put in, what did I put in? Hashtag call for speakers. And then maybe like a couple of weeks later, I saw his post pop up and it said, hey, this was back in maybe August or early September. And he was saying, we're about to put on our event in December. Anybody got an idea worth sharing, worth spreading? Send me a DM. And I was like, so I was like, wow, that was simple. And I didn't even know what the theme of the event was. The theme was fluidity, which was so cool for what I was speaking about, because my whole idea was about being able to feel safe, to create that inner safety within yourself, to be able to speak anywhere and to be able to be confident and fluid in any area. Because my story was that the safest way for me to communicate for so many years was in costume, was singing, in a lot of other spaces it was a little bit more scary. So I just connected with him there, and then he was like, "Oh, that's a great idea." And then he connected me with the organizer, and then that's when we just had a one-on-one Zoom, kind of like this, but just us two. And then maybe a week or so later, he was like, "Congratulations." I was like, "Whoa." But the cool thing about applying, which I can say, is that because even in the beginning when I was applying, I don't think my idea was as clear as it was once I really got down to the nitty gritty, like once I met him over LinkedIn, because the more and more I applied, the more clear my idea became. So by the time we did connect, it was like crystal clear. It was one very, very short, brief idea. And he was like, "I love it." And so I encourage people to apply to as many talks as they can, because I think the more you apply, the more clear and direct and concise your idea will become. The actual event itself, it was cool because I was the first speaker to go on, which was cool. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I can like hit it and quit it." Um, so that was exciting. So I was actually able to enjoy the other speakers as well and just kind of relax. But it really was overall that particular organization. They were just so spot on and very, 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 very communicative, like they all are, I'm sure. But it was great also because they really I want to say this might have been their fourth or fifth event, so it's a very young organization. Um, but we just had a wonderful time. I mean, they really made it like a big, it felt very, it wasn't necessarily a big event. I think they had close to 100 to 150 people there. So it felt very, very intimate, but they made it really big and exciting for the speakers, which was really great. So many wonderful tips and tricks, and the coaching, the speaker coaches. I worked with one speaker coach. She was really, really amazing. Each of us, the organization I think had two. And so I think there were three of us that worked with one, and maybe two that worked with another. So it was quite a liberating, validating, and very affirming experience for me, for sure.
I love that. I love all that you just shared, especially the LinkedIn part. Putting in hashtag call for speakers would not have occurred to me. I mean, beyond TEDx talks, I'm sure you can find other just events that way as well.
Oh, yes.
And that's just something that I tend to be in my like Facebook and Instagram world that I forget about LinkedIn a little bit. So that's a really great
LinkedIn
reminder.
is great. LinkedIn is
and
awesome.
I know Mary Teresa said in the comments, for anyone that missed it, that she also saw a post from someone she knew, kind of a similar situation, asking for speakers. I did want to ask before this gets missed. Carla was asking, did you still have to fill out the application form after you did the Zoom?
No. And see, that's the thing. Oh, I meant to mention that too. So you never know. All of them may be different. This particular organization, they even said at the event, they said, I think the first event they did the application process, and for their liking, they just would rather have conversations. They want to see the person. They want to hear the idea like that, and I think, maybe if my idea didn't fit, maybe they would have asked for more, but it was just kind of a timing thing. So it was really like, whoa, I wish they were all like this, So yeah, I didn't have to do another audit. Of course, I sent them my website, so they were able to see some other things about me. But for this particular organization, TedX Manitou, they really like the interaction and the building of relationships.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm glad that you were able to share that, because I don't think my impression would be that that's not the norm, but it's good to know that it's there are variations within each event. And so it might
Yes.
run a little bit more differently, depending on where you are located
Yes.
and where you're applying for. So very cool. Well, again, I think we probably have more questions for you here if you're able to stick around at the end.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and scoot on to the next person here on my list, which was Nicole, I believe.
Hello.
And Carla, I know you're here. You're going to be after Nicole. So Nicole, hit it.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Nicole. I actually did my TED Talk 5 years ago in 2017, so it's been a long time. I still remember the journey very vividly, and in preparing for today, I was trying to jot down what have people consistently asked me through the years on what is needed to, at least from my experience, what is those things that people don't necessarily tell you. I think the first thing is when you're trying to find a talk, I really love the connecting through LinkedIn and getting a speaker coach. That's fantastic. The old school way of applying is the way that I landed my TED Talk. But it all starts with the search. So when you're searching for the TED event, you're going to want to look. I use the TED tool to search for TEDx events as my baseline. You can also type in Google speaker calls, for that next year, depending on the time of year it is. And I know in my research, there was a couple of things that was really important to me. One is that the theme of the event tied into what I wanted to speak about, and not the other way around. I didn't want to fit in my talk into an event. I wanted to align with what was already in existence. So the TED Talk that I did find was all about perception. And that was what my talk was about. The original title was The Power is in Your Eyes. The event ended up making it a little shorter, so it's called In Your Eyes. And it's all about the power of empathy and letting the other person drive the car through the power of story and archetypes. So I would say that. So it's really important to find an event that has a theme that ties in to what you're speaking about. And you can make connections with anything really, but you're going to want to make that authentic fit, because the more authentic you are and the more authentic that connection is, the more it's going to benefit all. The next thing, and it's not maybe the most popular opinion, is that when I was investigating events, I wanted to come away with a high quality video. And not all TED events are created equally. So I really wanted one that was, I know, based on the organization's history, that it was going to come out as a polished, professional, beautiful video. And the one that I was selected for, time over time had beautiful, it was filmed in a theater with high-tech audio. It was well put together. And I think that's an important piece. You're going to want that piece, that content, as you build your speaker brand or whatever you're doing in your business. And there's nothing worse than going through the experience and getting a crappy video, just to be honest. The next thing is that people think that they need to be an expert. I did this talk before I built my business. My business came after. I was a speaker. I had many, many different things that I was doing that all came together that positioned me perfectly for the talk. So it was an assimilation of not only my experiences, but my own expertise mixed in with my own personal stories. So it was kind of like the alignment of those three things that really made me successful in this challenge. And I did see somebody in the chat asking, I think it was April, that was asking about memorization. I get that question a lot. My particular speaking style, I typically do not memorize my talks. I usually have bullets. For this TED thing, it was memorized. It was memorized to the point where I could relax into it. And that was a really good tip given to me by an expert speaker, that there comes a point when you're preparing that you think, oh my gosh, it's going to come off as robotic. People aren't going to believe me, but it actually does the opposite. It allows you to relax. When you're on stage and you open your mouth, it all flows because you know it like you know it like you know it. And it also gives you the opportunity to improv a little if you feel something, or there's a certain energy in the space that you need to pivot. It allows for that. One thing that I did do that was helpful is that I not only memorized it, I'm a runner. So I would recite my talk while on my runs. And so that gave me like one, the cardiovascular, input and helped my brain somehow. I'm sure it's some type of science, but also, helped me to counter my nerves so that when I was on stage and I had the extra shot of adrenaline, I again was able to relax and really enjoy the moment. So I think I'll pause there.
Thank you. Super, super great tips. Again, this is all, I'm trying to like scribble all these notes down while I'm listening to you guys. Yeah, memorized. I guess when you say that, I also typically go by bullet points in my head because I feel like it gives a little more natural feeling. I have watched, as I'm sure all of us have watched speakers before, sometimes even TEDx speakers, although not that often, where it does seem robotic, where it's like, oh, you can definitely tell you memorize this word for word, and it doesn't have that same kind of connection. But I do like kind of that mental shift of being able to relax into it a little bit more and trust it a little more. And yeah, Angie is commenting, and I am agreeing with her about the practicing while you're running. You're right. There is some science there. We won't talk about that right now, but my background is in health and nutrition. So very cool, Nicole. Thank you so much. And again, we'll have more questions for you here in just a bit. And Carla, last but not least, Carla's a runner too. I know she's here. Carla,
Yeah,
go ahead
so
and unmute yourself and it's your turn.
I'm here. I put a note to Nicole there. It's like, you must watch my talk, which was just happened. Today is a month ago, November 13, in Cherry Creek, Colorado, is actually a women event. So that's pretty cool, like to hit a women event because it's more specialized audience. Is the audience that I wanted to cater to. I really appreciate Nicole's comments in regards to don't make your talk fit the event. Look for the theme that fits you and to be authentic. There's so much that I want to say. There's two things that for those that are not, that I haven't met yet through the group, I actually have two hats. I just spoke at TEDx, so I'm going to speak to you with that hat and give you some tips about that. But I'm also a curator. So I also select speakers. So I think you're going to get more juice from that perspective, because I became a curator because, like some of you, I applied many times and never hit it. And I was like, what is it? Like, what's wrong, right? And I wanted to learn from the inside out. So I went into working with them and became a curator, because my other job is like, I'm an event planner. So I have always selected speakers, but I never thought about planning at a TEDx event. So I got into that world, and it still took 18 months to learn a lot and select a lot of speakers until I felt it was my turn and put my hat, my ring in the hat. And it was just, it was incredible to be on both sides and see, like, I understand now why none of my applications before were good. They were just not good. There was no chance I was going to get selected. So I'll tell you a couple of things that I think are very significant and important that were aha moments for me as a speaker. Your TEDx talk, oh my God, if you get anything out of these few minutes, your TED talk is not your keynote. It's 100% not your keynote. Keynotes are a lot based on businesses and also a lot based on stories. A great TEDx talk is 20% story, 80% idea. All it matters for a curator is not the title. If the title is cute, if it's like catchy, that's your keynote. I want an idea. I want an idea that I can lean on and say, oh my God, that's amazing. And I've seen ideas. I have done 6 TEDx events. So I have selected a ton of speakers. And there's people that present an idea and I'm like, oh, slam dunk. Like, yeah, this person is in. Like, there's no discussion, right? There's different layers. Every event is different. Like, I have heard from 3 of you, all your events are different for the events that I curate. Like, we have speaker trainers. You don't need to be a professional at all. I don't care if your video is filmed in your pajamas in a dark room. All I care is about the idea. I have seen videos that I laugh because the person, I feel bad because they spend hundreds of dollars in this lighting professional video that is edited. You send me an edited video, I won't watch it. I have to watch 200 videos. I'm not watching that. Videos are 30 to 40 seconds. If you send me a 1-minute video, I won't watch it. Nobody in the committee will watch it, right? So, and for example, like the committee that selected me is completely different from the committee that I work with when I select, and they have their own criteria and they watch every single video, even if they were 2 minutes. The people that I work with, we don't, because we don't have time for this. So follow the rules, read the application carefully. There's a difference when people ask you, what is your idea? And why those are two different questions. What is your idea? And why is your idea worth spreading? Over and over, I keep seeing applications where they answer both questions the same. What is your idea? It should be a 1-sentence thing. It's not the explanation of your whole life. It should be 1 sentence. This is the idea, right? My original idea, because like Mariama said, and I really appreciated that you said that, where I started and where I ended, oh my God, it's a journey. It takes months. I was in my particular event that I spoke at, it took 3 months. Some events take longer. Some events give you shorter time to prepare. They gave us 3 months and 3 months of coaching, right? So with my original idea, that what sparked the curiosity was security skilling opportunity. That was my idea. 1 sentence, security skilling opportunity. That was it. The theme of the event was reset. And then when they asked me, why is it worth spreading? Then I elaborated and say, well, we're in a time of reset, blah, blah, blah. And my whole talk, and I'll Mindy, with your permission, I'll put a link here, or when they post the video, so you see where I started, where I ended. My whole talk ended up being about the power of curiosity, because you really are going to look into your life and extract like but when you look at it, you hear it. I actually say it, security skilling opportunity, and I tell you why, and there's a scientific backup to it. So let's talk about backup and citations. Yes, TED requires now every TEDx event that if anything that you said that it is remotely close to science, you have to have the study, a peer evaluated study of where that came from. And you have to submit it with your idea. Don't ask for them to tell you. There's applications that I have seen that have a space for that kind of information. But if they don't ask you for it and you want to back it up, especially all of you that do self-development and mindset stuff, it's gonna be in your benefit to put the idea on your backup right there in whatever space they provide for that. Why? Because when we even submit the talks after the event, 50% of the videos are getting withheld. My video came out in 1 week, but I know all these little things, right? Like my video, I spoke on November 13, my video was up before the end of the month. There's still people in my cohort that video is going to take forever, because TED is objecting and objecting and objecting because of the subject matter that was discussed. So, so make sure that if it's anything scientific, self-development. The other thing that is super important to know, if you are in the self-development mindset, which I know a lot of us are, arena, 80% of the applications are in that arena. You have a lot more competition than if you are outside that realm. So you need to make sure. That was the feedback I kept getting, and I didn't understand why. Every time I applied, I would reach out to, which I advise you do that. Every time I apply, I reach out to the organizer, and most of the times I will get an answer. And that was the feedback every time. You are in the category that has the most applications. You need to stand out. You need to stand out from the get-go. So if you are in that arena, your idea has to be either challenging the status quo, an original idea, which I rarely see. I rarely see 100% original idea. I always see something that I have read somewhere, and it could be a different angle. My idea is a different angle of things that already exist. I recognize that. There's nothing new under the sun, right? So it's really hard to get a very original idea unless you create it, which I have seen that, unless you invented something, right? If you invented something, then it could be an original idea. So it's had to be challenging the status quo, an original idea, or a different take on an existing idea. Those are the parameters. What else I can say from the curator side? Don't worry about, honestly, at this stage that you are, don't worry about if you have to memorize it or not memorize it. The rule of thumb is you're not going to have notes. You're not going to have index cards in your hand. Your event organizer, they're all different. So they will be like, yeah, you have to memorize it. I know TED, not TEDx, but TED makes you memorize it. In the events that I organize, we don't want people to memorize. Why? And this I'm going to give you this advice coming from both hats. Oh my God, because when I had to do it, I super appreciated that advice. I didn't memorize it. I work on my talk for months until I have bullet points that I know what was next in my head. Like I was talking and I knew what was next in the journey of my talk. I actually went down to, when I had it complete, I wrote that outline on my phone. And I will go over it kind of like when Nicole, like when I was doing the laundry or when I was running or when I was doing this, I will go on like, this is this, then. What I said every time was different, every single time. And that was good because when I was on stage and I was living the moment, and I remember everything from that moment, I was able to get the best out of everything that I practiced because I've done it so many times, right? Without having to memorize it, without making it feel enforced. One compliment that I do get from my talk all the time is like, you look so calm. Because I was calm. I knew what I knew, right? And it wasn't memorized. And there's like maybe two things that I didn't say. I've seen a lot of people, and this happened at my event. This happened. You won't never see it because it gets edited, which by the way, that's what happens. Your video gets edited. If you pause and you lose your track, nobody's gonna see it except for the 300 people that are in front of you. I've seen people that would have not been able to recuperate from the pause because they memorize it and they have no idea what's next. And if without saying that, they can't go back. So, you do what your organizer tells you, but I have found as a speaker and as a curator that having a bullet point map and just talking from your heart, it really, really replicates in camera. What else I can say? I think the older ladies talk about research and all that. What I think I can contribute a lot because it served me both as a curator and as a speaker is the part of the idea. Like I don't know if anybody is from that cohort, but I actually taught and coached at a MicDrop Academy on the first cohort. I was invited to be a coach on that group, and I will take people's keynotes. Everybody in the group had the opportunity to meet with me one-on-one and take their keynote and transform it into an idea. And most of the times, it had nothing to do with the keynote. It was something from their life that had nothing to do with what they do. I got this advice and I took it because my talk changed a lot. And it changed 2 weeks before the event in a very big way because I needed to be authentic to my message. And it was, when the purpose of this talk is not to move whatever it is that you want to move. The purpose of the talk is that people like you and your topic and your authenticity so much, they can Google you. And then they'll find out what you have to offer. So you can talk about anything that it's in your heart, that if they resonate with it, they're going to go on your website and find out all the stuff that you are about. And I 100% stand by that. By now that I did it, 100% stand. I actually talk about running a lot. And that's not what I do. That's not necessarily what makes me money. So, but I know a lot of people have identified with that. And a lot of people have come back, circle back to me because they love this story and the message so much. So I don't know, Mindy, I don't know what else you want me to say, but I think that what served me the most was to understand that a TED Talk is a talk. It's not a keynote. And the purpose of it is to start a conversation. So when you think about your idea, and if you need help with your idea, DM me, we'll make it happen. But when you talk about your idea, the purpose has to be, does this start a conversation? Is this something that will start a conversation? And that's why my talk changed so much, because I had a scientific background on my topic that you will see on the video, but also at the end, it was about the story, but it was also about what can you get when you lean into curiosity. And I created, like, my hashtag was like Year of Curiosity, all that. And people loved that. People is like, I want to do a year of curiosity. I want to do that journey that you did. So at the end, that has started a conversation. What a year of curiosity can look for you, right? So that started that conversation. So you have to have a conversation starter and pay attention when they ask you, what's the idea? What's the idea has to be like a Twitter, like 140 characters. That's it. And then they ask you, what should be you? Why is your idea relevant? The idea has to be relevant to more than one person. I see that a lot. The idea has to be relevant for the world, not just for women, not just for people like you. It has to be relevant for everyone. And that's really hard to hit. I've seen that a lot, where I hear a great idea and I'm like, but nobody, I mean, this is so unrelatable to the rest of the world, and sometimes that person doesn't get picked because we get, I don't know, 350 to 500 applications and we only have 18 spots. So sometimes it's great, but it doesn't fit the mold. And if any of you are in Colorado, like in Denver area, and you ever want to volunteer in one of my events, most of my volunteers make it to the stage because we coach them a lot on these things and more. And that's something that I created to, propel more voices, and everybody local that has done that, you learn like why your idea is not cutting it. And most of the time it's because it's not an idea. It's a story with no idea, or it's a keynote with no idea. All right, I'll get off my soapbox now.
Thank you, Carla. I was so glad to see that you were going to participate today, because I know you have that experience of being on both sides, both, the speaking and, getting to choose being the curator, choose who gets to be in the Cherry Creek TEDx talks. So that was really beneficial to hear. Again, a main theme here is that no one area, no one place does it exactly like the other. So there are little nuances to each type, but I think that they're kind of, if we compile all of these, I think you're going to be off on a good foot. So many good things that you said there. I have lots of questions for you. I'm going to save them here for just a second, because I think there is one other person. Jen, are you here still? I've tried to message you in the chat and for some reason it won't let me.
That's weird. I am still here.
Okay. I kept trying to reply and it says she's not in here. I'm like, but I see her right there.
But I see her. Yeah.
She's there. Okay.
My computer decided to stop and restart. So maybe it's not.
That might be why.
Yeah.
So Jen, I'm going to let you share a little bit about your story, and then we will open this up to a little bit of Q&A for all the panelists.
Yeah, I won't repeat some of the things that Mariama and Mary Teresa and Carla have said, and Nicole, because it is about the idea. Like, I'm just going to underscore that it is about the idea. And I did my TEDx in Canada. And so when you're searching, if you're in the States, you don't necessarily have to limit yourself to the States. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. But as you probably know, but I haven't heard anybody say this, TED doesn't pay you or pay for any of your expenses. So if you're traveling, just make sure that you know that as a part of your search options. My TED Talk is called Great Relationships Need Conflict. It happens to be what I talk about because I am a leadership and conflict resolution and communication speaker. So it is about my topics, but it is a little bit different than my keynote. There were components of it that got pulled out, but one of the best ways that TED was described to me that helped me write it was that it's the Venn diagram of a really great story and a really good lecture that teaches you something with some applications at the bottom. like that is the overlap of TED, but it has to have the idea. Otherwise, as everybody said, you probably won't get through. And I actually was supposed to be live. And then because of COVID, it got changed at the last minute. So it was pre-recorded, and then it was kind of a whole thing. So things change, as we know, but the process of going through TED is, I would say, much harder than writing your own keynote. It's much harder than the speaking I was already doing, because of the pressure, because of like, oh my gosh, this is going to go out in a different way than what your regular. So don't get in your head about it. Like, connect with the audience. This is your idea. What do I want them to know, and why do I want them to know it? You can hone in on those things that will help you get out of your head and really have that idea that is worth spreading. And then somebody earlier, I think Nicole was talking about the keywords and the hashtags, or maybe it's Marianne. I don't remember. I'm sorry. Somebody was talking about keywords and hashtags and descriptions. That's important for later. I did a little bit of a TEDx launch team afterwards. And so we didn't know how long it would be until they're up, because each TEDx is a franchise that is at the discretion of TED when they're going to post the talk. So they don't always know when it's going to happen. So my TEDx was in February, March. Well, we recorded February 28th and it was actually live on March 6th, but it didn't get posted until May. And it wasn't because of citations or anything else. It was just the time it takes to do that. So I did a little party. Everybody talked about TEDx, and it was really fun to have that opportunity to just share. I happened to bring my speaker coach on. That is my regular speaker coach, not my TED speaker coach. And she talked a little bit about the process as well. And it was just fun kind of helping people see that. And then trying not to repeat things that other people have said. Oh, two things that are left. Sorry, Mindy. One is, because it's on YouTube and the TED site, you can embed that on your own website. So instead of continuing to send people to YouTube, embed that on your own website. So like mine is jenwhitmer.com/TEDx talk. And it just has that. And then you can offer things below, because in TED, you can't say, sign up for my freebie, or book me to speak. You can't do that. And so just, you can make your own little thing about that keeps it in a place where you're actually capturing something from the event beyond the idea. And then the last thing is thoughts about memorization. So I know several of us speak professionally as well as have done this TEDx events. And I do this with all of my talks, that idea of, if you know it so well, then you have the freedom to work on it. So I always get up and start moving around before it's finished writing. And I call doing it a walk and talk. So I have my paper. I'm sure the people in my neighborhood think I'm crazy, but I just put my headphones in and pretend that I'm talking to somebody with a clipboard, and I'm making notes and I'm writing, and that helps the writing process, but it also helps what called integration. So more than memorizing, like, I'm going to tell this story this exact way, like I'm an actor on a stage, which is a very specific skill set. Integration is this idea of, I know what my story is, I know how I want to tell this story, and I'm going to tell it over and over and over in the same way. So I master it, but it's like 80%. So that 20% is that connection to the audience, what happens in the room, all those different things that you can adjust to. And that is just a different way to think about it when you're thinking about, how do I memorize this? It's more integrated into I know this thing. And I can't remember who said that. I know that I know that I know it, and I can flex and move with it. And so one of the other ways that I did that is I recorded myself doing it, and I listened to it in the shower. I listened to it while I worked out. So I also didn't wear out my voice practicing it, all of that. I listened to it on the plane on the way, because I was in Texas before, from Texas to Canada, you just in the Uber on the way, just kind of, it's so in you that you come out rather than this memorized monologue, which is not what you want. And then it's also a lot of luck. It's a lot of application and luck. And there are brilliant, amazing speakers who never get a TEDx. And so if that doesn't happen for you, I think one of the big questions I always ask people is, do you want to be a TEDx speaker or do you want to be a professional speaker? And that's where you get, like, you can have both, but you don't have to have both. And so that's kind of where you want to go. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you so much, Jen. Oh, lots of good stuff. I just wanted to highlight a couple things for everyone, so make sure you didn't miss this. The integration, I like that idea of, I mean, it's kind of combining everything that we've heard, this 80% of, I have this sucker memorized, but I know it so well inside and outside that I can take this other 20% and kind of, flow with it a little bit, but I can always fall back on the memorizing if I get kind of stuck in a spot because I just know it so well. You just kind of become that talk. The other thing that I want to make sure people did not miss was when you were saying, what do I want people to know? But then why do I want people to know this? I think that is probably the biggest thing that if everyone can hone in on, again, I am not a TEDx speaker, so take this for what it's worth, just personal opinion. But when I'm hearing, Carla talking about, your idea and everybody, it's ideas worth spreading. When you ask that question that Jen just said, why do I want people to know this? If you can't come up with a solid soul burning answer there, then that ain't going to work probably. Just kind of my food for thought there. So thank you so much, Jen. We do have a few questions in the comments. I was looking through the questions that I had written and you guys have answered most of them. So good job. I'm going to go back through the comments here. Season Jones has asked, she says, I see lots of events close to me on TED.com and TEDx events. For most of them, other than the location and the organizer, there's no way to apply. Any advice for how to find out how to apply? So any tips on that from any of the panelists? Carla, go ahead.
In our case, I mean, you are right. There's a lot of events that for some reason, don't put the call to speakers. Oh my God, we have several events that we put it so much that it's like, wow, how is people not seeing this? Like we put it on the website, we put it on the Facebook. This is my best advice to you. Not every, kind of like what happened to Mariama, not every event curates. Some events we are allowed to invite people. Like I like Jen, come speak at my event. She doesn't have to audition, have to do anything. We can do that, right? So the best way will be to select, like I feel as a curator, when there are serial applicants, we see it because they send the same video they did, because the video stem, you can see it from 6 months ago when we didn't have the call, and we hate that. So do a video every time, like show that you care every time that you do an application. And also don't like spray and pray, like select where you want to speak. Like I wanted to speak at TEDx Women, period. There's no TEDx Women in Florida, so I couldn't speak here. So, and that's my hometown. So don't limit yourself to just like your hometown or like location, or it could be also where you went to school. That's actually a really good way in. Select a few locations, 1 to 5 locations that you really want and why you want it. Like Mindy said, like that you really have a reason why you want to be there. And if they don't have a call to action, then reach out to them. You can do it through Instagram, you could do it through Facebook, you could do it through LinkedIn. All that information is public. The organizers are on the bottom of in the TED announcement. Look at on LinkedIn and reach out to them and say, please reach out to them. Don't say, I get this all the time. Like first they're asking if they're going to get paid. Like people like you can tell that they did zero research. Show inform. I've been following your event. I saw that your last event was this past October. I was wondering where you're gonna open your next call, or if you're even curating for speakers, so I know when to apply. I answered those things right away because it tells me that they're interested. If it's just like a blank thing, or sometimes they ask me how much I'm going to pay them and all that stuff, I don't even respond. So make sure that you ask an educated question and they will tell you. Mine are always in the summer. So when people reach out to that, I said, like our Facebook page in June, there's going to be a post, like look for it. I don't know when in June, but I know it's in June. So you know what I mean? So just reach out to them through all social media channels, where they have an email published, and just know that not every event will open a call at all. They just curate their own people and they just don't open it to the public.
Thank you, Carla. I love when you said not to just spray and pray. That was my favorite quote from the from the day, but a good reminder too. So thank you for that. Mary Teresa, I see you have your hand raised. Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to add on to what Carla had to say, because I actually am also I was part of an organization called the Maine Women's Conference, which if anybody wants to submit to speak at that, that event does about 12 to 15 different workshops or breakout groups, and they are always looking for speakers, especially speakers from outside of the state. We actually like to bring in new talent. So my recommendation is what I was going to say, and Carla kind of said this, you might be looking at the event when the application period already closed, and that's why there's nowhere for you to apply. So for example, for our event, the Maine Women's Conference, the event is in October. Our application process will probably open in January till the end of March, because we want to be selecting our speakers in April to announce them in May. So the event is the Maine Women's Conference, and I already I'm going to, when they put out their applications, my recommendation second to that is when you find events that you're interested in being a part of, get on their email list, because that's how you're gonna, at least that's how we were emailing the world to say we have an RFP, please apply. We personally don't watch everybody's video, Carla. We actually look for the idea first, and then if we like your idea, and if it's in those categories, right? If your idea is great, then we will look at your video to see if you're a great speaker. But we do it a little bit different, which is just to show you that everybody's different. Their process is a little bit different. But my recommendation is that when you find different opportunities that you'd like to speak on, get on the email list, be part of their social media world, so that you can see as soon as they're going to release. Hopefully people are putting it out there. And that's also, part of the work that we've done here in Maine is working on how to bring in diverse speakers, because Maine is not very diverse at all. And so we really try and put ourselves out there to try and connect with other organizations to get the application, the RFP out there too. So we are also trying to work with other speaking groups to try and get more diverse speakers into our world as well. So, but I love the idea of reach out to the organizers and let them know you're interested, because I know that our first year we want a pool of 100 people to choose from for 15 different spots, because we want to make all of those conversations as diverse as the speakers are. So but I highly recommend you get on at least this list. I already said that I would post in the our group when the application was open, but I know that could be why when we don't have, and we try and put it on the website, applications are closed. We try and put it everywhere, as Carla was saying, but people just don't always look and see. And ours is unpaid as well, except for the top keynote speakers. So, but it is a great opportunity to expand your network. So.
Very
and I want to
good.
say thank you, Mindy, for putting this together. I have to jump to another call, but this was awesome. It was so great to connect with all of you. And thank you, Mindy, for doing this work. It's a lot to corral all of us for sure.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being on and sharing your knowledge. And I know you got to scoot out here, so thank you so much. Anybody else have any questions? I'm not seeing any in the chat. That doesn't mean I didn't miss some. If you have a question right now, go ahead and raise your hand or pop it in the comments. We are approaching this 1 hour mark, and I do want to be mindful of everyone's time here. So
I was going to add something too about applications and trying to find something. I'll have to find it online, because I found it like a couple of months ago and I sent it to some people on Facebook, but I can't find that message. I don't know where it is, but there's it's paid. It's like a monthly thing, I think, where someone actually finds all the events and then you just get them like over time. And there's also you could also Google TEDx Ohio or TEDx so-and-so, TEDx whatever state, and then there might be some things that just will pop up. Sometimes it's the event may happen like in a couple of weeks, but I've also been fun because there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I want to find some more stuff. So I'm kind of like doing some research for other people for events. And there are some things that are popping up. So if you just go like TEDx in whatever state, you know, things may actually pop up where things are current and they are still looking for people. So that's an idea as well. But if I find that other link, and if you're willing to, you know, pay a little bit every month to get that, you know, rolling in, I will put that in our group page.
Very good. Thank you. So many good tips here today. Oh, Season has her hand raised.
I just wanted to make a comment. Mariama, sorry. I just wanted to let you know that your microphone is really quiet compared to everybody else's. I don't know if anybody else is hearing that, but you might want to just check into that in case you do any online things.
Well, you know what? I lowered it down because sometimes when it's too high, I make an echo. So I don't know if that was the case, or I don't know what's going on. So it usually isn't. It could be because I need a new computer, which is actually a fact. Thank you, though. Thank you.
You're welcome. Often we don't know those things unless somebody tells us. So
Thanks.
Very good. Okay, well, I do not see any other questions on here, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I do want to put this out here. Carla, tell me if I'm speaking out of turn here. If anybody wants help working on getting at TEDx applications, I believe Carla is someone that, you know, will be able to help coach you through that. I think that's something that she does. You know, I know there's lots of TEDx speaker alumni in our Speaker Sisters group. I'm sure all of them would be happy to help you with some small questions. But if you're like really serious, like I want to get after this is a big 2023 goal, maybe look to someone like Carla. There's probably others as well. She's just sitting in front of me and she's the one I know. So that's who I'm going to suggest. But it might be beneficial to anybody that's serious, just like anything else. When you have a goal, if you're serious about it, working with somebody consistently on that. So thank you all for
Thank you,
being
Mindy,
here.
for that. And I just thank you, Mindy, for that. I just wanted to say something. Just be very aware of coaches, and that's why I emphasize, and I think everybody that's been this stage knows how I love how Jen described it. Like, it's called the talk of your life because it's so different from anything else that you have done. And I cringe when I see coaches that guarantee you that you're going to get to the stage. Nobody can do that. I cannot do that. I cannot guarantee you're going to be at the stage, because I might love your idea and you're presented to a panel of people that hate it, right? So I am always very straightforward about that. I was like, nobody in earth can guarantee you that you're going to get in. What I love to do with people is to help them find the idea and separate it from a keynote or a story, right? And kind of what Mindy said, you have to be serious. I have tons of people that ask me questions because they know I'm a curator on the chat, and I respond what I can. But there's a difference between that and actually filling the application with you. And Amanda Jefferson, which I wish she was here, she was a success story. The first day we met, I was like, Amanda, I love you, but you're never going to get in with this idea. And we found the idea. It's not my idea, it's hers. It was already in her, but we got it out. And she, sure enough, is going to be speaking in January. But I told her, nobody, don't give your money to somebody that is going to tell you, I'm going to get you at TEDx stage. Nobody can do that. No, absolutely nobody can do that. It's all you. The idea is already in you, and it's in your most likely in your life rather than in your work. So just keep that in mind. Thank you so Mindy, for the shout out. I would love to work with any of you.
There's a TEDx talk right there. Your idea is within you. So
yes.
That's it. The TEDx for TEDxers maybe is what that one is. So
I love it.
Very good. All right. Well, again, thank you to all of our panelists. We appreciate you sharing your experiences with us. This has been extremely beneficial for me, hopefully for the rest of you watching. And thanks for people that were able to be here and ask questions today. And I hope you guys are all having a fantastic day. And I'm going to end this recording and end this call, and I will see you again in the group.